Welcome to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. I'm your host, Chris Spear. So here, we're going to talk about gear, grit, and the kind of stories you only get around a fire. It's all about learning, adapting, and keeping your faith strong. So whether you're a seasoned outdoorsman or just looking to unplug and reconnect, you're in the right place. So pull up a chair by the fire and let's get into it.
What I wanted to show real quick is how I process. What I wanted to show you real quick is what I wanted to do is show you.
All right, welcome back to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. I'm here at Camp Wut Da Heck today, and it's a little warm. It's cooler today than it has been, but it's not 9,000 degrees. It's a little overcast today. The sun pops in and out. And I got the fire rolling over here in the fire pit. You may see some smoke flying in and out if you're watching the video. And we're just sitting here under the shade. And today, I want to talk about something that every hammock camper learns sooner or later. A valuable lesson. Sometimes you learn this lesson the hard way like I did. It's not about broken buckles or broken, carabiners, broken equipment or ripped tarps or anything of the such. It's not even about a leaky roof or rain or anything like that. It's a cold backside. It's what I like to call the hammock freeze. I have a couple Mississippi kites flying around. You might be able to hear their little call. They fly around looking for dragonflies or large insects, and they look like a hawk, and they're very, very cool looking birds. But that's neither here nor there. The first time I went hammock camping in the wintertime, I thought I had it made. I got out there. It was nice. It was perfect weather. I slung my hammock up between two trees. I pitched me a little tarp above it. Made a nice little shelter, little A-frame. I threw my blanket into the hammock and was good to go. There wasn't going to be hardly any mosquitoes. In the fall, wintertime, the mosquitoes kind of die down. So here in South Mississippi, it's the best time to go camping because you don't have as many mosquitoes. Every once in a while you get some, but not like it is in full-fledged summer. This particular evening was almost perfect. The fire was burning down to the coals. Bugs were making the little orchestra in the background. It was like a perfect evening. I stretched out in that hammock and thought life was great. At first it was. I started sleeping like a baby. And hammocks have a way of making you feel so comfortable with that gentle sway, that little cradle feeling, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to describe. You get to look out, you look around you. It's not like living in a tent. You got more view. Let's see. You got more freedom. You're not as restricted. You don't feel as claustrophobic. Somewhere around 2 a.m, 3 a.m, something to that effect. I didn't actually have a clock or a watch. I woke up. I was shivering. Like completely bone-chilling shivering. And it wasn't just a little bit cold. I mean, I was shivering pretty hard, and everybody knows once you start shivering, that's the first sign of hypothermia. And I don't think I was getting hypothermic, but it was, golly, I can remember this was cold. My arms and my chest were warm, but I was just freezing on my back, My whole underside, it felt like it was pretty much lying on an ice block. I tried everything. I curled up tighter, tried putting my blanket in between me and the backside. I tried sleeping in my blanket with a taco, like a taco shape. I tried laying diagonal. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. The cold was, it was just cold. I finally got up and started building the fire because it was miserable. And whenever I have a miserable night's sleep when I'm out camping, I tend to just get up and tend to the fire. And it's called the television of the woods, so it's entertainment. So I sat out there, warmed myself up, stood on my back to the fire. So why does this happen? Before we get any further on that, on page 59 of my book, Primitive Camping and Bushcraft, if you haven't picked up a copy, swing by Amazon or your favorite retailer and go ahead and pick up a copy of the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft book. So on 59, I was talking in here under shelter, and I'm talking about how an underquilt prevents warmth from escaping via convective cooling. And that is what happened to me that night. It's called convective cooling. Here's how that works. In a tent, you're on the ground. The ground might be cold, but it's solid. You lose some heat to conduction, the transfer of heat into the earth. But the ground don't move. In a hammock, you're suspended in the air. Air is moving freely underneath you all night long, and that moving air strips away your body heat. Now, your sleeping bag or quilt works by trapping loft little pockets of warm air around you. But as soon as you lay down in your hammock, all the insulation underneath you is crushed. It's crushed flat. So there's no insulation. No loft means no insulation. And with air flowing underneath the hammock, that heat gets stolen almost immediately. And that's called convective cooling. So you can have a 20-degree sleeping bag. Now, if you're in a hammock on a 45-degree night, you can still get cold. You can still get cool. And it's not because that bag is bad. It's because the air underneath you is pulling heat away faster than the bag can replace it or retain it. So once you understand that, you start to see why hammocks require a little bit of extra planning. And it's not just about what's on top of you. It's what's underneath you as well. And that's going to either make or break your night, to be honest with you. So the best answer to convective cooling is a hammock underquilt. If you have never used one, picture, and this is exactly what it looks like, but picture a sleeping bag that hangs beneath your hammock. So instead of on top of you or around you like a cocoon, it hangs below you, and it contours to the hammock, and it does not get compressed. Your body, it stays insulated. Your body warms it up, and it keeps you warm all night long. The first time I used an underquilt, it no other ways to describe it. It was like night and day. I strung it up. I climbed in the hammock, and for the first time, I slept through a 29-degree night, I believe it was. The first time I used it was on a 29-degree night, and I didn't wake up cold. I actually stayed warm, and because my backside was so warm, I did not stay as covered up on the top side, if that makes sense. It's weird for me to explain, but I'm a weirdo anyway. If one part of me is hot, the rest of me has to compensate to cool off. I don't know. But I do that even at the house when I'm laying in the bed. If I'm covered up with covers, my feet have to be uncovered. If my feet are covered, then my chest and all that has to be uncovered. It's weird. But my advice is to start with a 3-season quilt, spring, winter, fall type thing. And it depends, honestly. If you're going to go camping in the wintertime with a hammock, get you one with a 3-season quilt. They got on the ends, they attach to your hammock. Some of them have carabiners. They just attach there and your hammock fits inside of it like a taco. And then on the other end, it's got a carabiner, does the same thing. And they got different lengths, different thicknesses, different grades. You got some under quilts or hammock quilts that completely encompass the hammock. And you sleep inside a suspended mummy bag is basically what it looks like to me. That's the only other way I can describe it. But if you're serious about hammock camping, especially outside in the summertime or the wintertime, it is definitely worth every penny. If you're sleeping outside in the wintertime in the hammock, it is worth the penny. Now, if you're sleeping out in the summertime, a bug net is perfect. You don't have to have a bug net all winter. Even here in South Mississippi, you still do get some of the mosquitoes. My advice is to start with this quilt. Pick you up a cheap one. You don't have to buy any expensive. If you watch my show, listen to my show, or anything like that, you know that cheap gear will get you through. And I'm not saying everything has to be cheap, but try you something cheap first. See if you like it. And then upgrade it to something more quality that'll last longer. Cheap gear is just as good as quality gear, except for cheap gear is not going to last as long, if that makes sense. Do you see where I'm coming from? I'll probably get some people throwing some darts at me for that, but I'm not worried about it. A 3-season quilt will keep you warm down to 30 degrees. And like I said, the one that I had was 29 degrees at night. I remember it vividly. Even the dog was shivering. I had to cover them up in a wool blanket. So that's all well and good, but what do you do if you don't have an underquilt? Sleeping pads. That's where a sleeping pad comes in. A closed cell foam pad will work. Now, is it going to be as warm? No, it's not going to be as warm, but they're lightweight, they're cheap, and they'll stop the convective cooling from stealing all your heat. They're not going to be the most comfortable inside of a hammock because hammocks hug your body, and a stiff pad can feel a little bit awkward, but they will do the job. And I got Ranger patrolling around camp here, digging holes everywhere. I don't know what he loves to dig. Inflatable pads can work. They pack smaller, and some are pretty comfortable. And the one that comes to mind, and hear me out on this now, is the little floaties for swimming pools, the little things that you lay on in a swimming pool. You can get those cheap, and they're great for one-night camp out trips or 2-night camp out trips. And those, I've used those before. My brother has used those sleeping on the ground before, and they work. They work perfect for a few days. But if you're going to do it long term, they're going to pop, they'll whatever, but they'll get you through. Now, they're cheap. You could pick them up at, let's say, Dollar General every fall sells off all their summer stuff, and you could pick these things up for $1. They're cheap, they're effective, and I'm all about cheap and effective. So if you don't get anything else, you can use just that floating. What's it called? A floating mat? A blow up mat? I'm not sure what it's called. If you know what it's called, leave a comment and let me know. Then you got the reflective pads, the foam pads with a shiny side that bounces body heat back to you. They're inexpensive, and from my research, they are surprisingly effective, I guess. I have never used one, especially for like fall camping, stuff like that. I guess it's like the same thought as a Mylar emergency blanket. But that would drive me nuts. Every time I turned over, I had that crinkle sound. It reminds me of doing the entropy survival bag video where they have an emergency tube tent. And you just hop up inside that dude and it reflects all your body heat back to you and keeps you warm. But as several commenters have commented, and the truth is that if you're already freezing cold, you're already shivering, hypothermia has already started, and Mylar blanket ain't going to help. You have to have fire. You have to have heat. You have to have something else to help warm you up. Even with an underquilt or pad, the wind is going to make a big difference. If the breeze is ripping underneath your hammock, you're still going to feel the chill. Now, there's several things that you could do with your tarp. That's why your tarp pitch is going to matter. In the summertime, a high open pitch is going to give you plenty of airflow. That way you don't sweat to death. But in the cooler months, you need to drop that tarp a little bit lower and get the sides close to the ground. And I have seen several videos online where people will take these tarps and it almost looks like a tent. It is that high up off the ground with their hammock in there. And I'm like, dude, you climb up in that hammock, you're going to be butt rubbing the ground. It's just going to keep you barely off the ground. And that's the truth. That's what happened. But if you get that tarp like an A-frame, it's going to keep the moisture off of you, because usually in the wintertime you have a low dew point. Like the low for the night is usually going to be the dew point, especially here in South Mississippi. You wake up the next morning and everything's going to be saturated with all kinds of water. One of the other options that people will use is a wool blanket. They'll put a wool blanket up underneath their hammock. And that does basically the same thing. The wool traps all the heat and will do basically the same thing as an underquilt. Your tarp does matter. Your shelter does matter when you're hammock camping. People, diamond fly works great for rain and that kind of stuff. A-frame is great for wind. Now, you could probably do some variant of a lean-to, overhead lean-to, where you got maybe 2 or 3 feet at the top, and then your ridge line, and then down in the back. That way you get some protection from the dew or the moisture of the air, but it's going to block the wind. And that's feasible. I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to do an A-frame no matter where I go, what I do. There's a reason why these tarps are 9 meters by 9 meters or whatever. 3 meters by 3 meters. I'm sorry. That's what a double D 3 by 3 is. It's 3 meters by 3 meters. So that's what, 10 feet, almost 10 feet, right at 10 feet, 9 point something feet. And if you got it at 9 point something feet on each side, that's pretty good. You're going to have some decent coverage. So that first night in the hammock where I almost froze to death, didn't give me much sleep at all. I remember tossing and turning and finally get up and start poking the fire, shivering to death. But somewhere in the middle of it, and then now, thinking back to it, reminds me of this verse in Psalms. Psalms chapter 4, verse 8 says, I will lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. That's powerful stuff. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. I will lie down and sleep. For you alone. That verse speaks very loud on very cold days. It should remind us all that peace isn't about comfort. And it's not about a warm bed or a perfect setup. But peace comes in knowing who holds you. The realization changed that night. And I was still cold, but I wasn't afraid. I don't see how afraid had anything to do with it. I wasn't worried about it because I knew that I wasn't alone. My brother was there camping. He had another setup, but he wasn't. He was camping on the ground. He don't ever like bananas. He don't like hammocks because it makes him feel like a banana. But God uses discomfort to remind us of a deeper truth, that He is with us, even when the circumstances aren't ideal. Eventually, I learned to fix the hammock freeze, or the convective cooling, with an underquilt. And I learned various other ways to make underquilts for my hammock. God's going to give us the tools to face the challenges of this life. He gives us His Word. He gives us His Spirit, His presence. Those are the underquilts for our soul. They're going to keep us steady when everything else is cold and everything else is shifting. So, what kind of underquilt do you have? Do you even use an underquilt? Do you even rely on an underquilt? Do you go camping and use a hammock and have an underquilt? Now, I want to give you a few little bullet points here. I got written down, practical wrap up. So here is the bottom line. If you're going to sleep in a hammock, always plan for your underside. Always be ready to keep your underside warm. Always plan for the bottom of your hammock. Remember the term convective cooling. That's what you're going to be fighting off. That is going to be your enemy. Underquilts are best. Pads also work. Your overhang or your shelter or your tarp's going to help out a little bit, but it's not going to really, you're still going to be cold. Now, the direction that you hang this tarp is going to be what's really going to block the wind. If you got this thing turned in a direction where the wind's going to keep on coming through, then silly you, you're going to freeze pretty much no matter what. That's why I wrote the whole book here on shelter, the whole chapter on shelter. How to set your shelter up to block the wind, the elements, all that kind of stuff. So don't wait until you're in the woods on a long trip to try to figure out how to deal with this. Plan for it before you leave. Try it out. If you can in your yard, try it out. Try it out if you got a front porch with posts. Go ahead and set your hammock up on the posts out in the front yard or the front porch and see if you can do it. I got posts out there on my back porch, and I've set hammocks up there several times. Learn how to set your stuff up before you have to depend on it, before you get out into the great outdoors, before you go on a long backcountry trip. Always know how to use your gear. And I've said that from 50 some odd episodes. Always know how to use your gear. Always use your gear before you head out. Always be proficient with what you're going to use. Unless you're trying something new out and taking it to learn, and this trip is going to be your learning experience on that piece of gear. I've done that before. I went camping just to try out a specific piece of gear. But I had another one that was similar to it to back it up, just in case that one, I couldn't get that one or that one broke. As the fire's winding down here at Camp Wut Da Heck for the day, here's going to be our action for the week, our action tip for the week, our homework, so to speak. Set up your hammock and spend the night in it. Even if it's just in your backyard, front porch, back porch, barn, shed, garage. If you don't have an underquilt, try some kind of pad. Try a blanket underneath it. Try something and set something up to give you some way to trap in some body heat to keep you from freezing, waking up with the shivers. Pitch your tarp as low as you can to block some heat or block the wind to keep the heat trapped in there. And then pay attention to how it feels. So whenever you get out into the great outdoors, you can replicate that. And while you're out there, take a moment to thank God for the peace that he gives you, even in the nights that are not perfect. Just know that you can always and should always rest in him. So thanks for joining me today on this episode of Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Podcast. If you found it helpful, go ahead and share it with a friend. Subscribe to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Podcast channel on YouTube. Join the Facebook group. I can never say that. Facebook group. Join the group on Facebook. The Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Facebook group. And then leave a comment. Let me know if these episodes are being helpful. Just let me know. Yeah. But anyway, until next time, remember, in all your ways, acknowledge him. And I'll see you in the next video or the next podcast. God bless you. Thanks for sitting around the fire with me today. If this episode gave you something to think about, if it helped you feel a little bit more prepared, or it even stirred your faith a tiny bit, go ahead and share it with someone else who might need it as well. We don't go camping to run away from life. We come out here to slow down and recharge. So grab another log, throw it on the fire, and remember this. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. I'll see you next time. God bless you.